Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga Fantasy Football Show. So you can see as with me today, I've got obviously Runa. Yeah, no Rory today, I think due to a bit of sickness this week as well. So yeah, hopefully he's getting better soon. He says he's going to check in with us a bit later. So hopefully he's doing okay. Yeah, so obviously we've already got a few questions in, which is great. We'll come to that a little bit later, Runa. But yeah, let's without further ado, we'll make a start on the goalkeeper. So we're going to start from this week on. We are going to start giving goalkeeping tips as well. Obviously, we don't usually do that, but from this week on, we've had a few requests about goalkeepers. So we're going to start doing the usual budget pick, mid-price pick, and premium pick for goalkeepers as well as the defenders, midfielders, and strikers. So let's start with that then. Yeah, so straight on to the goalkeepers, Runo. What are your tips then?
Yeah, my budget pick this week is Janis Blaswick from Leipzig, who I also mentioned last week, and that's simply because he's the game's cheapest starting goalkeeper at the moment. Plays for one of the top teams too, and Peter Gulacsi will be out for a pretty long time. So definitely a good shout if you're looking for a cheap goalkeeper. And my mid-price pick is Jiří Pavlenka, who's actually the most in form and consistent goalkeeper fantasy-wise if we look at the last 3 games. So he's picked up 10, 11, and 8 points respectively in those 3 games. So pretty solid from Pavlenka, and maybe a bit of an overlooked option in goal this season. And finally, my premium pick, as I've said before, I don't personally like to spend that much on a goalkeeper, but if I were to pick a more expensive goalkeeper, I would probably go for Mark Flecken, who was the second highest scoring goalkeeper last season, and he's still doing very well. Unfortunately, he's much more expensive this year, but he's still a very good option. Last week's game against Hertha was one to forget for him, but if you look at his previous matches, he's been incredibly consistent, and the fact that he's playing against Bayern this week is not necessarily a bad thing, I think, because as we've seen, Sommer and Gikiewicz earlier this season do really well against the Bavarians. So yeah, he's likely to save a lot of shots, and he might do well. I mean, Freiburg looked impressive again tonight in Europe, winning 4-0. So they're in great form, and they might cause a bit of trouble for Bayern.
Yeah, it looks another difficult game for Bayern, doesn't it? I mean, obviously they're in, what is it now, 1 win in 6? It's crazy. It's almost unthinkable, really, in the Bundesliga, because obviously in the Champions League, they're not having any problems, are they? Already qualified with 2 games to spare. But yeah, they've really got to pick up the form in the Bundesliga, and they just need to get, for me, they need to get a settled 11, really, because there's been too much rotation, and there seems to be a little bit of dissatisfaction amongst the ranks as well. Yeah, Rory with a point as well. Yeah, evening, chaps, watching from my sick bed. My team also in need of drastic surgery. Yeah, I think mine too after last week. I think I only got like 65 or 67 points. So, yeah, I need to work on my form as well. Yeah, Gavin with another question as well. He says, "Hi, gents. I won't be able to join you later. So this question came in before the show, because he'll be in class here in Mexico, I guess. Yeah, so hopefully you're enjoying your class, Gavin. Yeah, Rose a few places. Rose a few places to 6th overall and 2nd in your league. So wow, yeah, fantastic effort as well. So who do you back in Sunday's games? Yeah, any betting tips you've got there, Rory? Anyone that you think is going to win this weekend? Or
yeah, well, I have a feeling that Köln could do well against Augsburg in the early Sunday game, because Augsburg have a few suspensions in defense. In fact, their usual center back pairing is suspended, both players. So defensively, they could struggle there, especially if Gikiewicz isn't past fit either. Then they will have to manage without their 2 usual center backs and their first choice goalkeeper. So I think FC Köln have some very interesting options there that are quite cheap too. And I think Union Berlin Dortmund is quite hard game to predict. It will probably be a quite even game. And then of course you would expect Bayern to beat Freiburg in the last Sunday fixture, but as we just talked about, Freiburg are doing incredibly well this season, and they're a real tough team to play against. So we'll see if they can cause an upset there.
Yeah, it's incredible how well Augsburg are doing considering the number of injuries they have and suspensions at the moment. I mean, it seems every single week they have a suspension or a new injury, but they're having one of the best seasons ever in the Bundesliga so far. And obviously, I was at the game on Saturday, and I just love the way that they fight for every ball, Augsburg. They just seem to fight so hard under Enrico Maaßen. He's turned them into a real kind of like hard team to play against, regardless of who's on the pitch. You know, I mean, they were missing Giekewitz, obviously Oxford, Dorsch, Berisha through suspension, and yet they still could easily have won that game, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree. What was pretty unlucky for them was that both Bauer and Gauvelau picked up a fifth yellow card, so they will both have that 1 game suspension. That's quite unlucky that they're serving that suspension at the same time. But definitely they're doing well, especially considering the squad, I think.
Yeah, and obviously the news coming in as well this week that that Dorsch has had another setback, so he's going to be out until the new year as well. So they're not having much luck, but obviously they're getting results, which is all credit to Enrico Maaßen at the moment. Okay, so straight on to the defenders then. So as you can see on the bottom of your screen, Rune, do you want to take us through them, please?
Yeah, my budget suggestion in defense is Dani da Costa, and I didn't want to mention Mitchell Weiser again this week. He's still the best budget defender in the game, but you know, suggesting him every week gets a bit boring. So this time I'm going to go with Dani da Costa there. He's more of a differential option. Silvan Widmer has been ruled out, so da Costa looks set to start as a right wing back in a quite attacking role there, and he's cheap and owned by 0%, and Werder are a quite attacking team, so maybe he'll get a bit of space to get in behind there, playing in a quite offensive defensive role. So potentially a good differential there if you're looking for a cheap option. And my mid-price pick is Geomet Hector, who started out the season quite impressively and became quite popular. But he hasn't quite been able to live up to that form recently. Nevertheless, I think he's a player that's back on my radar this week. As I said, I believe Köln have the potential to do quite well against Augsburg, considering their suspensions in defense. And it's a standalone fixture too, so having Hector to sub on Sunday would be quite good, I think. And then finally, my premium pick is Borna Sosa, who has a very high ceiling, as we all know, but he's been unable to find his top form on a consistent basis this season. I think he's had too many games where he hasn't showed up, and Stuttgart have generally struggled, of course, and Pellegrino Matarazzo paid the price for his team's poor form and was sacked recently. So maybe they can get a fresh start in the first game after that sacking. They definitely should target a win against Bochum at home. It's a true relegation 6-pointer. So I think that game could see Sosa play a key role, and his ownership is really low considering his potential.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just another question in from Jeff as well. So I'm scared of players from the 2 late Sunday matches. Yeah, obviously 2 massive games. We've got obviously Union versus Dortmund, which is 1st v 4th, and then we've got Bayern versus Freiburg, which is 3rd versus 2nd. So is there anyone from Bayern, Freiburg, Dortmund, or Union that is a must-have, would you say? Well, what do you think? Or is it worth avoiding those players considering the difficult fixtures all around?
Yeah, I agree. I feel the same way about those 2 games. I mean, having a few Bayern players would be wise, I think. So if you have a defender from Bayern and maybe an attacker, then I wouldn't bother selling them. But I probably wouldn't get another Bayern attacker this week, another Bayern player in, and the same goes for the other teams. Maybe I would consider selling my Freiburg assets. I mean, if you have Christian Günther or Vincenzo Grifo, they're quite expensive and playing Bayern away from home in the last game of the Sunday. So that's a bit of a gamble, a lot of money to spend on those players, especially considering you won't be able to sub in someone else afterwards if they don't do well. So I would maybe consider selling my expensive Freiburg assets at least, and I agree with Jeff. I wouldn't look to specifically bring in any players from those 4 teams.
Yeah, definitely. A question from Rory as well, obviously a Stuttgart fan. Is it time to bring in VFB players from the new manager bounce? Yeah, which I'm desperate to be a thing. Obviously, Pellegrino Matarazzo finally being relieved of his duties after the defeat against Union on the weekend. What do you think? Do you expect to see much from the VFB against Bochum this weekend? Or?
Yeah, I think it could be one of those cases where you see a team performing well right after their manager is sacked, just as we saw with Leverkusen last week. Of course, they haven't found a replacement for Matarazzo yet, but nevertheless, that's what you sometimes see, teams doing well after sacking. And yeah, I just mentioned Sosa, and I also think Mavropanos is a pretty good shout, and Chris Führig could be a quite good differential. It looks like he will start this week, and he will play in a more attacking role than under Matarazzo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're getting questions flying in at the moment. Actually, yeah. One from FPL Popo. Is Davis injured?
He of course he was injured against Dortmund last week. Picked up a cranial bruise in the game, but from what I've heard, it looks like he will play. It looked like he will play on Sunday, but I would wait for Nagelsmann's presser tomorrow to see what he has to say. But from what it looks now, he will play.
Yeah, and Friendly Bane as well. Is Freiburg's Gunter a must sell for the buying game? So just like what you were mentioning before, do you think we should get rid of him? Or
yeah, I think so, because I think we have 5 transfers, and I think there are other options costing the same that gives you more value for money this week. For example, the likes of Rami Bensebaini or Borna Sosa, as I just mentioned. I would much rather have Sosa this week than Günther for that tough away fixture.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we had this question last week as well between Kabak and Angelini, or who can I transfer out? So what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, you can see if Angelino actually starts tomorrow. He's competing with Kaderabek for a spot in the starting 11. So if Kaderabek starts, then the choice has already been made for you. But if not, then well, if you have them both, I would probably get one of them out. Tough one, actually. I would probably take out Kabak if Angelino starts, because I think his ceiling is higher.
Yeah, and just another question, not really fantasy football related, but he says, sorry if I've already said this, but who do you support, Runa, if anyone? Yeah, do you want to tell the crowd who you support then in the Bundesliga, or in football in general?
In foot, I mean, I don't support any team in the Bundesliga. I try to stay as objective as possible, being a journalist. So I think in general there are a lot of teams that are very likable in the Bundesliga, a lot of teams that I like, but I don't want to pick a single one. Here in Denmark, where I live, I like to go to the games of my local club, BK Frem, sometimes, which is a small club with a lot of tradition, and they have a good relationship with FC St. Pauli. They have a bit of they have quite a similar profile to St. Pauli in terms of politics and their views in general.
Okay, yeah, interesting. You must be pretty proud of the Danish game as well, for the draw against Man City the other day as well. That must have been quite a big coup for them. I mean, nobody in England can get near City at the moment. So yeah, it was a good point for them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The Copenhagen is a very well-organized side, but of course they were helped by the fact that City had a man sent off in the first half. But still, quite impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, without a doubt. Okay, yeah. So, but we'll come to a few of the other points a little bit later as well. So, yeah, let's have a look at the midfielders then. So, Runa, do you want to talk us through them?
Yeah. First one is Philip Förster from Bochum. And yeah, he was Bochum's star man last week, and the best performing midfielder in the game with 19 points to his name. So he should have plenty of confidence heading into the relegation 6-pointer against Stuttgart that I talked about before. And his price is really low, and he's owned by 0%. So if you back Bochum more than Stuttgart there, so then you could go for Förster instead of an option from Stuttgart. And my mid-price pick is Lars Stindl, who I've mentioned a few times on the show. He scored last week against Köln, and that means that he's had a hand in a goal in 3 consecutive games now. And I think his price is low considering his potential. He's one of the most informed midfielders in the game at the moment, and yeah, his ownership is quite low too. So a very good alternative to Jonas Hofmann if you're looking for a cheaper option. And then finally, Christoph Baumgartner, who I've mentioned week after week too. I mean, he still managed to pick up 9 points last week, despite the fact that Hoffenheim lost against Werder very disappointingly, and he could have ended up with even more points if he had scored in the first half where he hit the post. So still think he's a very good option, especially for the Friday night fixture against Schalke, who are really out of form and struggling at the moment. So I think Baumgartner could do really well there.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think Hoffenheim players are worth getting in there for me because I think Schalke have been pretty poor the last 2 or 3 weeks, haven't they? And they actually look like they're going backwards rather than forwards at the minute. And I think obviously rumours about Frank Kramer's future as well this week as well. So maybe a heavy defeat there at home against Hoffenheim could potentially be his last game. We'll have to see about that one, obviously. Another question coming in as well about midfielders. Yeah, best replacements for Kainz, who's obviously suspended after his red card. He already has Baumgartner. Anyone else we can stick in there?
Yeah, Stindl, as I just mentioned, and then maybe if you want to go for differential, I think Yannick Gerhardt has done quite well recently. He's much cheaper, of course. I think Jude Bellingham could be an option to consider too. He's starting to play a more attacking role, and he's been really involved in goals lately. So I think that now that Marco Reus remains out, then Bellingham could be a good alternative for Dortmund, and he costs just about the same as Baumgartner.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, another question from Friendly Bane. Yeah, is the Stindl Hoffman double up wise? So is it worth having both of them in the same team? Or
I mean, judging by last week, then it's wise, but I think it's probably a bit too much Gladbach in midfield for me. So I'll probably go with just one of them because they lost the game before that to Werder, suffered a pretty heavy defeat there. So that shows that, I mean, if you put too many eggs in one basket, then it could be a problem. So I'll probably go with either Stindl or Hoffmann.
Yeah, definitely a very hit and miss side Gladbach at the moment, haven't they? Like scored 5 1 week and conceded 5 the week before. So yeah. Just another one. Yeah, is it time to get rid of Kimmich for Goretzka? What do you think about that one?
Yeah, well, I actually sold Kimmich last week because he had just been out with Corona. So I'm considering whether to bring him back. I mean, Goretzka actually looked very good in midweek against Pilsen. He was arguably Bayern's best player in that game. So if you have Goretzka, for Goretzka, okay, I thought it said or Goretzka. So taking out Kimmich for Goretzka, well, Kimmich is more nailed on. So I probably wouldn't get Goretzka instead of Kimmich if I were to sell him. Kimmich is one of the more consistent performers for Bayern. So he's a player I would look to keep long term if I had him, and I'm considering bringing him back this week too.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the strikers then. So do you want to talk us through them?
Yeah. Budget pick this week is Stefan Seagus from Köln, who is quite cheap, 3.7 million and owned by 0%. So a very good differential option. He plays for Köln. As I said, I really fancy them to do well against Augsburg this week. And he actually started on the bench tonight, which could indicate that he will start in the weekend. I could imagine him starting there. So a good cheap option there. Mid-price pick is Munas Dabur, who has emerged as a starter in recent weeks, and he scored last week. So I think he's likely to be in the starting lineup against Schalke 04 on Friday. We can see the starting lineup anyway, so we'll know if he starts. And if he does, then he's another good option that isn't owned by a lot of people. And finally, my premium pick is Timo Werner, who I also suggested a few weeks ago, and he went on to score a brace there. So I was pretty happy about that suggestion. And I think he's beginning to look like his former self. Had a very good game against Celtic in midweek again. So he should have a lot of confidence heading into the game against Hertha. So a good option in a week where Bayern and Dortmund have difficult fixtures, for example, and then Union Berlin too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So thanks a lot for your tips again. So get these players into your teams, fly up that leaderboard in the fantasy football. I definitely need a bit more help as well. But yeah, I think no more questions in, so we can pretty much sum up the show there. Yeah. So if you enjoyed what you saw today, then remember to check out our Twitter feed @OverTheBarFB and @OverTheBarExtra. Remember also our otbfootball.net as well, which is the main centerpiece of our work at Over the Bar. Yeah, also don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as well. Also remember to check out our new video as well. I think, Rune, you've already watched it, right? You mentioned before the show our vlog of Augsburg versus Wolfsburg. So, if you want to see what a match day is like in Germany, then you've got to check that out. We had the Football League shows Dave Pearson as well over here for the game. So, if you're a fan of both shows, then you've got to kind of get involved by watching that. Yeah, thanks a lot to you guys who joined as well. Yeah, a bit of love for Rune as well. Yeah, Rune, you're a legend. Thanks.
Nice one.
Thanks to Frimpong and Fulkrug. Yeah. My only advice is just keep Fulkrug in your team. He's been an absolute god for me. Fulkrug and Weiser, and you're going to fly up that leaderboard, really.
But last week was pretty special too with Frimpong and Bettebaini. I had them both too, and that made me take a real leap up the leaderboard. So I made it into the top 100 now. So it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, he's going to win it this year, I'm convinced. Yeah, but some brilliant tips last week, and I'm sure this week will be no different. But thanks a lot, Rune, and thanks a lot to the listeners, and we'll see you back for the next show on Monday. So see you then, guys. Bye-bye.
See you guys.